Are you a stress eater? Eating can be one of life's simple pleasures. After all, there's a reason why you'll often hear people use phrases such as comfort food. After a stressful day, the temptation is strong to simply curl up in front of the TV and snack on your favorite junk food. But like all things, moderation is key. What happens when you start to rely on emotional eating a little too much? And when that happens, how do you stop? Before we continue, we'd love if you subscribe to Bestie if you haven't already, and ring the notification bell to stay up to date on our daily videos. For many people, stress and anxiety are a natural fixture of everyday life. How people cope with these feelings of stress and anxiety can vary. For some, it's to indulge in some of their favorite foods. This is what's known as emotional eating. So why does curling up with a tub of ice cream after a bad day of work feel so good? Well, the reason is actually fairly simple. When eating food that you enjoy, it triggers the production of dopamine, a transmitter in the brain that is directly linked to pleasurable sensations. Dopamine is an important part of how human beings function, but if we're getting our dopamine from the wrong activities or sources, then it can create problems later on, especially when it causes our brains to associate performing those actions with receiving dopamine as a reward. So, if you're the kind of person who usually turns to food whenever you're feeling stressed, anxious, or sad, then your brain will start to associate food as a cure for those feelings. But the feeling you get from emotional eating is often fleeting, and as a result, this can very easily lead to overeating. Now, not only are you just as stressed as you were before, but you also have the added guilt of eating too much. If that wasn't enough, many of the foods that provide you with short-lived dopamine boosts are also junk foods that are high in sugar and carbs, which can lend themselves to increasing health problems. So not only does a regular routine of stress eating often lead to increased food cravings, but the cravings themselves are often for junk food with little to no nutritional value. According to some researchers, such as Kenneth Blum, the food cravings and binge eating that can accompany stress and anxiety might, in some cases, be linked to a condition known as reward deficiency syndrome, or RDS. According to Blum, people with RDS don't fully experience the way dopamine feels, the way most other people do. And as a result, they might unconsciously try to compensate for this by eating more than they normally would in order to make up for the diminished effect dopamine has on their brain. If you've watched up to this point in the video and realized that you may, in fact, be guilty of emotional eating, your next question is probably this: how can I stop it? Fortunately, there are a number of useful tricks, techniques, and strategies that you can use in order to curb the habit and get your eating habits back on track. Since emotional eating in stressful or anxiety-inducing situations can often lead to overeating, one way to prevent accidentally binge eating from stress is to pay closer attention to your food intake throughout the day. According to HealthLink BC, one of the ways in which you can stop yourself from accidentally overeating or binge eating is by keeping a food journal. Throughout the course of your day, write down everything you eat, as well as when you eat it. While you're at it, write down what you were doing and feeling right before you started eating. After a while, you might discover patterns in your eating habits that you might not have paid attention to otherwise. For example, you could start to realize that your food cravings between meals always seem to happen whenever you're about to tackle a stressful assignment at work. By consciously writing down what and when you eat, as well as what you were feeling at that particular time, you can begin to identify possible triggers for emotional eating, which in turn can be the first step to preventing the emotional eating process. Another suggestion recommended by HealthLink to avoid emotional eating is to use a hunger scale whenever you start to feel those food cravings. Imagine a scale that runs from 1 to 10, with 1 being absolutely starving and 10 being absolutely stuffed to the point of feeling sick. Whenever you start feeling the urge to eat, evaluate your current level of hunger and rate it somewhere on the scale. This can help you differentiate between actual hunger and the psychological desire for food that is caused by emotional eating. For example, if you start to feel like you're craving a bag of chips, but your hunger sits somewhere between 5 or 6 on the scale, chances are you're not actually hungry, and your desire for food is being caused by stress and anxiety, rather than the actual need for those calories. Once you've used strategies like this in order to identify what causes you to fall into emotional eating, you can start to take the necessary steps in order to prevent it from happening. When the food cravings come, one thing you can consciously try to do is simply ignore them. When we give in to our vices, we empower them. So exercising a degree of mental discipline can help you kick the habit instead of simply feeding into it some more. Of course, ignoring the desire to stress eat doesn't mean that you have to force yourself to suffer through a stressful or anxious state of mind. Like we said before, your brain turns to emotional eating in order to seek out the boost it gets from a dopamine rush. And dopamine can come from a variety of sources. Instead of relying on junk food to get your dopamine fix, why not respond to the next time you're feeling stressed by going for a walk, or having a hot shower, or reaching out to a close friend? All of these things and more can help with the release of dopamine, which in turn can help you through a potentially stressful situation. If you happen to know the exact cause of what's giving you the urge to start binge eating, you can also choose activities to directly counteract them. For example, if you're emotional eating because of anxiety, physical activity can be useful to help burn off some of that pent-up nervous energy. If you're eating out of boredom, maybe try sitting down with a good book instead of a tub of cookie dough ice cream. In other words, all you really have to do is find something that makes you happy, and then do it. Yeah, it's really that simple. It's no secret that the world is full of stressful situations, and everyone is bound to experience stress, anxiety, boredom, sadness, or loneliness at some point in their lives. All of these are perfectly normal, valid emotions, and nobody should ever feel ashamed for feeling them. But what matters the most is when we do experience these feelings, we use healthy and effective mechanisms in order to cope with them. While your favorite junk food might cheer you up after a lousy day, making that your go-to solution for a bad mood will eventually lead to an overdependence on eating as a way to handle negative emotions, which in turn could result in a feedback loop of overeating, guilt, and stress, as well as the potential for other health problems. By recognizing and coming to terms with a tendency towards emotional eating, we can employ better, healthier strategies to manage our feelings and develop good eating habits to keep us healthier and happier, both physically and emotionally. Are you a frequent stress eater who found the information in this video helpful? Maybe you already use some of the strategies we discussed here in your day-to-day. Or you have some techniques of your own that work equally well, or maybe even better. If you have some great advice to give to people who are struggling with emotional eating, don't be afraid to keep the conversation going in the comments section below. And if you do know someone who is a frequent stress eater and is actively trying to quit, feel free to share this video with them. Enjoyed this video? Hit the like button and share with your friends. Also, subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.